I always have to talk myself into getting started. Hi everyone, I'm April, and you're watching the Tangled Cat Speaks. So here it is, the beginning of 2023. I have not done a podcast since the beginning of November 2022. So it's been a couple of months, mostly because most of the things that I made, I gave away. So not a whole lot to show you. I did make 2 sets of fingerless mitts. One was a crochet pair and the other was a knit pair. And I will put pictures up here with the names of the patterns and designers. But honestly, I don't remember a whole lot about them. They were just kind of quick gift knits, and then they were given right away, so I don't have them anymore. I didn't even introduce myself other than my name. How rude. I am a knitter and a crocheter from Rio Rancho, New Mexico, and this podcast mostly talks about that. Sometimes I do talk about books that I've read, movies or TV shows that I've watched, and sometimes just random life stuff, but it's not a lot, so don't worry. The other project that I did, one of the other projects that I did was also supposed to be a gift knit for my son, but there was kind of a mess going on with these. They're a pair of socks. I do have one sort of done. It looks done, but I'm not done. And it's not even about the ends or all of the stitch markers. The problem with these is, okay, so Christmas Day, I went to my son's house. That's who they're for. And I only had this one done. And the other one, I only had their toe up. And I still had the whole leg to do. Well, I was down here, yeah. And I was sad and I was heartbroken. And my other son said, "You know what, Mom? It's Daniel. He doesn't care." And I'm like, okay. So I took him what I have and I showed him. And he was like, "Oh, that looks cool." And I'm like, "Well, can you at least try this one on? Because I have had issues with these socks." These are the Smoking Hot Socks. It's part of a set of 3 that came in the PDF. I believe it was a free pattern. And I'll put all of the information for it right here because I don't remember who it was that did the pattern, but it's a very confusing pattern. I mentioned in a previous episode that I like to do toe up, and my favorite heel is a heel flap and gusset, and I had found a fingering weight pattern that is really good with adding both of those together, because most toe up, it's usually afterthought heel or short row heels, and I just find the fit of a heel flap and gusset works much better in my opinion. So I found this one because it's and I wanted to make DK. He definitely said he wanted DK, and since this kid actually does wear the socks to the point of no return, I thought I'm gonna do what he would like. So, because the last pair that I made him were fingering weight, and I think before that he got a pair of sport weight and 2 pairs of sport weight, I think. And he likes the thicker ones better. So I decided to go with DK this time because I didn't have any sport weight. So I held 2 fingering weight yarns together, and I found a pattern that is DK weight, toe up, heel flap and gusset. So I was making this first sock, and I was going along, doing really good. And then I looked at the foot, and I was already almost done. I was like about to bind off, and I held it up, and I was like, well, it looks weird anyway because it's 1x1 ribbing. So it's very narrow, so it makes it look extra long, but it looked even longer. And sure enough, I was 2 inches too long. And I was like, what was I thinking? I don't know. So I pulled it all back and then redid it, got to the second sock, and then here we are, Christmas. not quite done with the second sock. So he tries them on and it's still an inch too long. So now I am not going to re-knit both of these. He's got an 11-inch foot and he likes them to be about a 7-inch leg. I'm not going to redo these. So what I had done was I held these two yarns together. These are both, I think I might have mentioned this in the last episode. These are two of the chicken yarns from Hue Loco. And I was holding them together. And they worked out really good. They're pretty distinct, but they're kind of in the same family. But, I mean, you can't really tell that it's two different colors. They blend so well. And for the toe, I did an orange and a dark, or not an orange, like a rust color and a dark purple. So it kind of gave a little bit of the marled look. So what I'm going to do, instead of re-knitting these whole socks, I'm going to cut the yarn here in the toe color and then take off the toe, rip back an inch worth of rows, pick it back up, and then knit the toe again as if I had been working top down. So I'm a little nervous about that. A little nervous, but I did take a lot of notes on this sock, so I should be able to get the fit right this time. Because this pattern, there was not only some outright errors in the pattern, it was just written so oddly that it was hard to understand, and I kept having to read things over and over, and I'm not unfamiliar with making socks, and it was just so confusing. And I think, even though, like I said, I had figured out that I was 2 inches too long, so I ripped back and then redid it and was still another inch too long, was because when I did the heel, I realized that it's kind of like a double gusset. It's very interesting. So I think that second gusset part added that little bit of extra that I just wasn't expecting, because it's like usually you do the gusset and then the heel turn and then you start doing the flap, and this was like you do a gusset, then you do the heel turn, you do the gusset, then you do kind of like another gusset, like the placement of the increased stitches is in a different place. It's very strange. And then you do the heel turn. And so I wasn't really anticipating how much length that second gusset was going to add. So that's what I think the problem was. But the pattern is, even though I didn't realize that, the pattern itself had some issues, and I was not happy. But I mean, what can you do? I think I've got about maybe 10 more rows of the leg, and then I can bind off. And speaking of the bind off, this pair of socks, the two fingerless mitts that I was telling you about, that I had given away, was a new to me bind off called the Rook bind off. And I did do a little kind of like a tutorial video for that. Super, super easy, super fun, and a nice sturdy but semi-stretchy bind off, so that it's, it makes the leg open up enough to get the sock on, but it's not going to flare all crazy. I mean, it's obviously going to flare a little because, I mean, it's knitted fabric, but it's not going to do that, where it looks like you just knit a tulip. But I love that bind off. It was so fun, and I had never seen it before. When I was looking for stretchy bind offs on YouTube, mostly it was Jenny's stretchy bind off, and there was a couple of other ones that I don't remember the names. And then, usually when you're scrolling for stuff, you just kind of stop after the first couple of pages, and I just kept going and going and going. And I found this one, and I only found the one, and the reason why I decided to do my own video for it was because that video was like 2.5 minutes long, and no voice and no written instructions on the screen. It was just the hand movements, and I had questions, So I had to play that video over and over and over to make sure that I was seeing what I was seeing and if mine was turning out the way that it was supposed to, because I didn't know. So my 6-minute video with me talking through it answers some of those questions that I thought maybe some other people might have too. And it's actually gotten pretty good. It's been received really well since I've uploaded it to YouTube. So I hope that it's been helping people, because it certainly helped me, and it's my new favorite bind off. So yeah, I totally lost my train of thought just now because a message popped up and it just kind of threw me off. So I need to finish those. And then I thought I want to do something that I want to finish before Christmas or before December, so that I can wear in December to celebrate Christmas. And you know me, things get away from me very quickly. But I started what I wanted, and this is the Albuquerque Sunset Shawl by Casa Pinka. And I have had this pattern for ages, and I haven't found yarn that I wanted to use with it. There was a couple of things that I wanted to do, but mostly I bought it because it says Albuquerque and I live right outside of Albuquerque. And then I had it in my head that I wanted to do something Christmassy, and I had just recently gotten some yarn from Breaking Yarn. McKaylee has done a color called Doghouse, which is inspired by the TV show Breaking Bad. The Doghouse, if you're not familiar with Albuquerque or the show, it is a hot dog stand downtown Albuquerque. It's called the Doghouse, and the sign, I haven't been there in decades, literally decades, but the sign, from what I remember, is red and green, like a neon green and a bright red, and that's what she did in the yarn. This is it wound up. If I can find a picture of it in the skein form, I'll put it up here. But it's red and green, so I thought, oh, Christmas, which also works really well for Albuquerque and New Mexico in general, because we love our chili. And when I say chili, it's not the same as what you would think like Texas chili. This is like different, very different, and very hard to explain. But everything we put, just about everything here in New Mexico, we put chili on, and there's a red version and a green version. And if you want both, because they both have heat, but they have different flavors. And if you want both of those on your entree, you call it Christmas tree, because you're getting both red and green. So I thought this works really well for Albuquerque as well as the Christmas theme. The other yarn is Lily of the Valley, which is just a beautiful pure white. And this is it so far. It's a lot of slip stitches, and it kind of transitions from one color to the next. So it starts off here at the end. It's like a boomerang shape shawl. Oh, and it's twisted all kinds. So it starts off with the one color. So this is Doghouse, and you can see that it's got some slip stitches in there. And then it transitions to the background being Doghouse and the accent color being Lily of the Valley. I've gotten to the third part where the background is Lily of the Valley and the accent color is Doghouse. And I am just loving it. And at the very end, I think at the very, very end, it transitions to some lace, and it'll be in solid white. I do have an extra ball of this because I changed up the number of rows for each of the sections, because I really wanted this section to be the standout, the biggest section on the shawl, because I really like how that looks. This kind of bugs me, honestly. This is the only place that this yarn pulled like that, and I may go back with duplicate stitch to kind of make that less obvious. We'll see. But because I'm changing the width of or the length, however you want to call it, of the sections, and I want more of this. I wasn't sure I was going to have the recommended or enough of the white as recommended. So I got a second ball just to be safe. But I'm loving it, loving it, loving it. Obviously, I did not get it done in November to have it done for December. Because in December, I put it down because Advents happened. And I had bought 2 Advents for this year, or 2022. I bought one from Indian Tangled, and it's called the C to C to 23, I believe. And it's really cool because it's they got together yarns from different, one for each day for 24 days from different yarn dyers along a road trip route that they had taken a while back. So they kind of got a hold of a dyer in each particular city and added that to the collection. So it kind of takes this route from East Coast to West Coast and then back to the East Coast. And what's cool about that is breaking yarn is in there for New Mexico. And I also got a second advent from Toad Hollow. Toad Hollow, Helen and Mary Beth have decided that they are no longer going to be dyeing yarn. I think right now they're at the point where they've already stopped dyeing. They're just selling. I think they're just selling what they've already gotten. I think a couple of clubs that they were finishing out the year. They had finished out the year with, but I think they're done dyeing as of already. But I had gotten their advent. And I thought, oh, I could do both at the same time. Why do I always think these things? I don't know. And it turns out that after about a week, I was already behind on the Toad Hollow project, and I didn't end up liking the order of colors in the Indian Tangled box. I like the colors, I just didn't like the order that they were showing up in. So I gave up because I wasn't going to be able to finish both. And so I gave up on the Indie, and I actually opened all of those and then rearranged them, took a picture of the order that I wanted, and I put it aside for something later, probably later in the year. And then I continued on with the Toad Hollow project, which is a blanket. I think it's called a throw, but I think it might be big enough to use as a nice shawl. Oh, I'm gonna do it. I mean, who's gonna stop me when they say, "Are you wearing a blanket?" And I'll be like, "No, it's a shawl. Duh." Nobody's gonna know. I mean, you guys are gonna know, but you won't tell anybody, right? So this is the Go Go Throw by Amba O'Brien, and it's pretty chevrons lace. This is knit. This color here, the black or like charcoal, really dark charcoal gray, is not part of the Toad Hollow box, the Advent box. That was another multicolored full skein, but I wanted a solid neutral in between these colors, so I have that full skein set aside for something else. And I chose this charcoal. I didn't take any notes to do this. I said, I haven't done a video in 2 months. I'm going to just jump in and do it. And I didn't take notes. And so here we are. I'm going to have to put this up on the screen. I want to say that it's the old rustic chair or something like that. I just know that this was yarn that I bought when I went to Nashville several years ago to see my favorite singer, Avi Kaplan. Oh, my heart. Anyway. So it's like a charcoaly black. I think that's called Midnight. So it's a semi-solid, so there's going to be some lighter and darker spots on here, but I thought it was going to be a perfect neutral, which is funny because Toad Hollow never made a black. They refused in all the years that they dyed yarn to make a black because it's not their aesthetic. But God, look at how pretty the black is making each of those colors pop out. They did completely random order of colors. There wasn't a gradient or an ombre effect. They just did it all kinds of whimsical, and I'm in love with it. And the black is just making everything pop out. Ooh, and I love it. But as you can see, still on the needles, it's not done. Not done. I think I'm on day 17. So I've got several days left to go, but that's okay. This isn't a gift and it's not a race, and nobody's going to come to my door and say, you didn't finish. I love your Advents. Shame on you. So let's see, where did I put them? Oh, so I do have there's 4 here. 4 balls of the next colors that are supposed to go into this throw shawl shanklet. And it's gonna, the next is the orange and then continuing on towards the pink. So, oh, so pretty, super excited. And this, I love this one. Like blues with reds and purples and turquoise. And oh, I love it. Oh, there's green in there too. I really am enjoying this shawl, but it got away with, time got away with me, from me. And so, yeah, I'm behind, but that's okay. That is okay, because another thing that I wanted to finish, and I did finish, I have one finished object to show you. And I love it. It is a cowl, a hooded cowl. It's called the Hespera cowl, and I'll have to put the name of the designer up here. And it's knit in the round until you get to the hood part. And then that's back and forth, and then you do a 3 needle bind off kind of thing. And it's got some lace on the bottom, and oh, I loved it, I loved it, I loved it. So this is what it looks like from the side. Now, this yarn, I'm gonna have to show you a picture of them up here with the yarns that I use. It's a it's a tonal navy blue. And I want to say it was Malabrigo Machita, and it was called Unicornio. And then the reason why it's got all of these colors is because I also held that fingering weight with a mohair from 3 Irish Girls, and that one is called something with the K. Kathmandu. I was going to say Kalahari, but it's not Kalahari. It's Kathmandu. And it's one of their yarns that I have really wanted for the longest time, but it seemed like every time I went to look for it, it was never in stock, or they didn't have it up on the list or whatever. And then it was back one day, and I was like, yes. And then it took forever for it to come. I got the Kathmandu in a fingering weight regular yarn, and then I got a mohair. But I wanted to use the fingering weight in something else, so I used the mohair held with this tonal navy, and oh god, I love it. But I will show you if I haven't already, I'll put the picture up of what they look like separately, and then you can see how they look together. Here's the lace. It's just a very simple lace and a garter bottom, garter edge, cuff, hem, I don't know. And I haven't put this on yet since I blocked it. I definitely needed to block it because this here is some garter, and it, you know, kind of pulls in. So I had to pull it out so that it would fit. Or the opening, you know, for the face. I want to put it, I'm going to try it on. This is the first time I've tried this on. Oh my gosh, I hope it looks good. Hair be damned. I'm doing it. But it works really, it's going to work really cool. Ooh, look at. Oh. I look like I am headed to Mordor. Look at that. Look, it's so cute. And I think that I will probably wear this a lot more than a beanie. And I put it would be, you know, the way that it's supposed to be is it's supposed to go up under your coat. I'm obviously not wearing a coat, but this is just my sweater. But I mean, you would tuck it in so that keep your neck warm. And then if you don't need the thing, and then you can put it down, and it still looks kind of cute. Super happy with it. And yes, blocking made a big difference because I wasn't sure that this was gonna fit around my face here because the garter kind of, it wants to squish in where stockinette doesn't. So it looked small, but then after I blocked it, it opened up and it looks so pretty. I just have two ends that I haven't tucked in yet. This one here at the very beginning, and the other one is hidden somewhere up inside of the hood, and I'm probably not even going to go back and look for it to tuck it in. It'll be fine. It's okay. But I love it. Again, this is a Hespera cowl, and I think it's one of my most favorite things. I've made tons of beanies, and I don't wear them. I don't like how I look in beanies, and they don't stay on my head, and I think it's because I've got such thick hair. They just never stay on no matter what I do. I could pull them all the way down here, and they'll slide back, or they slide up back here, and then I've got this weird, they fall off. I don't like them. I love how they look. I don't like wearing them. So I thought, how about an actual hood? And now I could be a hobbit. Yeah. Love that. So that was all of my yarny stuff for November and December of 2023. There were a couple of other tiny little things because I really wanted to use up the rest of that yarn for that cowl. There was like a tiny little bit left of the multicolored mohair, the Kathmandu. There's a little bit of that left. So I think I tripled what was left, and I ended up making a little fish, like a amigurumi fish, about that big, and a crocheted butterfly. I gave the butterfly to one of my sons, and the fish is somewhere over there. Just very small. I can put little pictures up here. But I really wanted to use up all of that mohair. What was I gonna use that in? There was only maybe 100 yards left. I wasn't gonna really use it for anything. Not even 100 yards. Maybe like 50 yards. Not very much at all. So I used it up in something small, and I feel good. I'm not gonna have that sitting in my leftover stash. So let's talk about what I'm working on now. Besides those socks, I've decided that I want to do, it's called the 20 and 23. It's a knitting or project challenge, not knitting, but like a project challenge that the Passionate Spinner, her podcast, she's doing a 2023 where you're getting 23 of your whips that have been languishing somewhere and getting those done now this year. So I did find 23, surprise, surprise, because I have 8,000 whips. I found 23 that I want to finish, including those socks for my son. So I made a list of the 23 projects that I want to get done. And I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to try. So here's my list. And I'm just going to check them off as I go. I mean, not that you could read any of that, but I'll talk about them as I get to them. But I made a list. It's crazy. I made a list. I wrote something down. It's amazing. And then I also wanted to, I'm never going to not start something new. I constantly have start-itis. So, but I'm going to write down what I am starting, and I'm hoping to at least get one new thing a month. But if I only start one new thing every other month, that's cool too. But I did start another page of the new things that I'm going to be working on in 2023. And of course, there's another knit along that I am participating in, and this is from Marina Skua. She's doing the Out of the Dark Mal, which she does every January, to sort of say, you know, we're done with the darkness, especially because she's in England, and they have a lot of dark time in the winter. and she's like ready for daylight to come back. So that's why she calls it the Out of the Dark make along. And this make along involves using either or both her yarn or her knitting patterns. I've chosen to use her yarn. I have a ton of her yarn, and I really wanted to make something. But I do have a few of her patterns, but none of the patterns were going to work well with the yarn that I've chosen as far as yardages. So I went with the crochet pattern. It's called the Darjeeling shawl, and it's crocheted on a 3.0 hook. Now 3.0 is a weird size in the US because it doesn't have a letter. Usually in the US, crochet hooks are categorized from, I think it's B through, the biggest I've seen is an S, but and then it has the millimeters listed on the hook usually. And the UK and other places just use millimeters. Well, this particular hook 3.0 is not in the US categorization, or however you want to call it. It kind of skips, I think 2.75 is an F and a G is 3.25. So that 3.0 is somewhere between an F and a G. I don't know who came up with these standards, but I was glad to have a 3.0. And the reason why I have a 3.0 is because I was being cheap one day. I think I've talked about this before. I really like my boy crochet hooks. That's what I learned on. They're cheap aluminum. Love them. The shape of them is just, I've used them for so long that that's what my hand knows. And some of these fancier ones with the ergonomic handles and blah, 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 I don't like how they feel because I'm just not used to them. I'm glad that they're there for people who like how they feel, or that they help them with, you know, things like arthritis or whatever. And I like that they're aluminum. I know some people don't like to use the aluminum because they're metal. It stays cold in your hand a lot longer than, say, wood or like silicone. Anyway, I was being cheap one day and I needed new hooks. And I mean, you know, for me, crochet hooks are kind of like bobby pins. You buy them and then one day you can't find them, like the one that you need. So I found on Amazon, I found a set, and I think they came from China. I don't always look at these things, but when they came, they didn't have the ABC, or not the B, C, D, E, F, G. They were all millimeter, and the 3.0 was in there. So I was very happy about that. When I came to doing this pattern, I'm like, oh, well, look at that. Clever girl. So this is where I'm at on the Darjeeling shawl. And this definitely speaks to Marina Skewa's thought of Out of the Dark, because this is definitely trying to manifest spring. Loving it, loving it, loving it. Look at her color, her colors. I love them. I love, love, love them. This is her Mendip 4-ply yarn. So it's a fingering weight, and they come in 50-gram skeins. It's 100% British wool. This is her little card because I love it. And I think I've chosen 8 colors or 7 colors. 7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can count.
6 colors, maybe a 7th color, depending on whatever. But this is where I'm at. I've already used 4 colors. I'm starting on the 5th color, which is kind of hard to see in my lighting, but the 5th color is a very dark chocolate brown. Let me see. I'll just hold up the ball. And then after that, I'm going to be using this more rusty brown color. Then I'm going to go back into some oranges, whoops, which is this one. This will be the end of the shawl. And just for color reference, it's very different than the orange that's in the beginning of the shawl. a little bit darker and redder. And then I did save some of the yellow, which if you are new here, yellow is my least favorite color of the rainbow. I don't care for yellow very much. I like it in as an accent, and that's what I'm doing with it. But if it was overall, no, not for me. My favorite color happens to be green, but there is no green in this shawl, and there won't be. But I still love it. Ugh, I can't get over it. I can't get over how pretty it is. And it's going to look even prettier when I block it, because it's going to open up some of these stitches even more. It's got fan stitches, puff stitches, and front post, back post. Very nice. And this pattern is written in US crochet terms. But as I was saying, when I'm done with this color, I'm hoping that I will have enough of this to do the final last row in this color, just to kind of bring it full circle with the color palette. So I'm super excited. I hope I have enough, because this pattern is written for one ball of a really high yardage yarn that is like a color gradient. And I didn't do that. And she doesn't tell you where to change colors. It's just kind of do your own thing. So I'm just kind of guessing, and I'm using up as much of a ball as I can until, if I know that I'm not going to finish the next row. Like if that ball is going to end in the middle of a row, I'm not going to do it. So I have stopped. I usually have, I think, about like 7 or 8 grams of these first few of the orange, the pink, and the red. I've got maybe about 7 or 8 yards left of each one, which I'll put into something else later. But I'm hoping that because of that, I don't end up being short, because I'm not using the full balls. I do have another orange. I have 2 of these actually, but I have a third orange that's kind of somewhere in between the 2 of these that I kind of wanted to use for something else. But if I have to, I'll put that in before I put in the last edging of the yellow. So I've got plans, and this works up so fast. I'm much faster at crochet than I am knitting, and I'm loving it. I can't even get over how pretty this is. Kind of makes me think of those mandalas. I love it. I love it. I'm having so much fun. This is kind of a rustic yarn. I don't get terribly itchy. I can feel a little bit of prickliness with it, but it doesn't make me itchy. I'm just saying, because some people are very sensitive to prickly yarns, but I wouldn't say that it's like a rough yarn. It's really not. And it does soften up a little bit after the first washing. So, and it is washed by hand because it's 100% wool. There's no superwash here. Got to be very careful with those. I have a question, and if any of you out there knows, please tell me. I have been wanting to make socks where I'm holding a fingering with a mohair, and it would be a superwash yarn. Totally going off on a weird tangent right now. Anyway, is it possible to make socks using a mohair yarn and put them in the washing machine? I'm thinking no. I'm thinking that even though the main yarn would be superwash, the mohair would still kind of get all funky if I put it in the washing machine. But I thought I'd ask. You lovely people, maybe you have an answer for me, because I don't mind hand washing my socks. I just don't always remember to do that, which is why I always use superwash. So, but if I can use mohair, I would love to start pairing up some of the smaller balls that I have, like leftover balls, with some fingering weight. So let me know if you happen to know that answer. I kind of think it's a no for the washing machine, and I would have to be very careful, but I could be wrong. Let me know. So that is pretty much everything as far as yarn and knitting and crocheting goes. It's been kind of there was so much going on. There was Thanksgiving, and there was Christmas, and there was work, kind of a work party thing for Christmas. And then there was the up and down days, previously I mentioned in the previous video, just some ups and downs that have been going on in my life, and I'm still dealing with that. So there have been times where I'm just like, I'm not doing anything. I don't even want to do that. And I would be reading, and even my reading was kind of less. I did a lot more audio booking the past couple of months than I did actual eyeball reading. But speaking of reading, let's talk about that. Just to mention a few books that I've read the past few months. I've been doing an Agatha Christie book every month. This one in November was called Marple. Now, it's not technically written by Agatha Christie, but it is a bunch of mystery writers who wrote, I think it's 12 authors, who each submitted a short story using Miss Marple as the main character, which is why the book is titled Marple. And I love Miss Marple. My favorite is Poirot, but I love Marple. So I got that book, and I got it from the library, actually. But I picked it up, and I read through them, and I enjoyed them, but it wasn't Agatha Christie to me. You could tell there was, each author's own flavor to it. And actually, there's only one author that I really said, I think they nailed the story. And that was Ruth Ware. And I had heard of her before, but I had never read anything by her. So having read this Marple book, I went and found another book, by a full novel by Ruth Ware called The Woman in Cabin 10. And I really, really enjoyed that. It's kind of a thriller type situation. Really, really good, about a woman who's, she takes medications for, I believe it's anxiety, if I remember correctly. And she's had some situations happen at her home that were kind of weird. Somebody breaks into her apartment, and it kind of puts her on this paranoid thing where she's afraid of everything. But I mean, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean you're wrong, doesn't mean that somebody isn't after you, So that's kind of how that is going. People are not believing her. Some people are. She ends up having to go, she decides to push through and go to her job, which is kind of like a travel journalist. And she goes on this yacht, and it's this big business guru kind of guy, and he's got this yacht, and he is supposed to be launching this new commercial yacht where you can go boating around, but it's much smaller. It's like you're going on a cruise, but it's a much smaller boat. And it's supposed to be state of the art. Everything's supposed to be perfect and wonderful. And things start happening, and not only are people doubting her, because a couple of people actually know her in real life and are aware of her situation, with the attack and everything, and some of her emotional stuff. And so some of them are doubting her, and then she starts doubting herself, and it's this big kind of thing. And I just really, really enjoyed that. I had fun with that. It's not normally the kind of book genre that I read, but I really enjoyed it. So I'm glad to have, even though I didn't like all of the authors in the Marple book, I was glad that I found Ruth Ware, and I am planning on reading something else by her soon. Don't know what yet, don't know when yet, but I'm definitely going to read more of her. Let's see what else. I finished up the series. Why am I blanking right now? Anyway, the last book in the series was The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty, and loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it was the most profound book series ever, but I really, really enjoyed it. It's a fantasy series, some magic and stuff going on that has to do with like genies and jinns and other mythological creatures from the Middle East. Definitely something different for me, and I really, really enjoyed that, and I really want to find other books in that type of setting. But I had a lot of fun with it, and I finished that series. It was a trilogy, so there was this City of Brass, Kingdom of Copper, and the Empire of Gold, I believe. It was really good. Had fun with that. And I finished the Dandelion Dynasty series with the last book, Speaking Bones, and I gotta tell you, I loved that series so much. Again, another fantasy. There's some little bit of magic maybe, but it's more like a lot of mythology, theology, and there's a lot of fantastical type creatures, and it's kind of like a new dynasty is rising up, and it's kind of set in what seems to be an Asian culture. And someone mentioned that it might have been based on the Han Dynasty, which now I want to read about the Han Dynasty, and I am not a history person, but this book was so good that I want to read some history on the Han Dynasty. Anyway, so kind of the political and cultural stuff is kind of feels Asian, but there's a lot of how do I put it, like technological advance from, you know, kind of like the industrial era. Like they start learning how to do these things, and then all of a sudden mass production and all kinds of things. Just once they start inventing these things to better their lives or to further warfare, all of these technological, mechanical advances just keep moving forward, and it's really, really quick, and it's just, I don't know how to explain it without giving a whole lot away, but it is super fun, super imaginative. I loved it. And it's kind of brutal too, because, you start to, it's brutal when some of the main characters are not safe. You're like, I really loved them and now they're gone. Very good, very, very well done political intrigue. Had a awesome time with it. So that's the Dandelion Dynasty, and the last book was Speaking Bones. So I finished that, had a great time. I read the most recent book in the Cleo Coyle series. It's a coffee shop mystery series, and I think the most recent one is called Honey Roasted. It's basically, amateur sleuth. She owns a coffee shop in New York, I believe. And she always manages to get involved in murders, and she happens to always be more clever than the police. Cozy mysteries. I love them. They're my guilty pleasure. I'm going to keep reading them. But the most recent one was Honey Roasted, and I had a good time with it. It involved bees, honey bees and hives and stuff. And it's funny how they just kind of incorporate these things with the whole theme of coffee, and really enjoyed it. Had a good time. Let's see. I just finished the 7th book in the Expanse series. I can't wait to finish this whole series of books so I can go back and rewatch the TV series, because I'm just loving it so much. I read H.P. Lovecraft's Call of Cthulhu, and I also read The Hound. I'd never read anything by H.P. Lovecraft before, but I always hear so much about, such a good writer, and he's, done so much for horror. He was this, he was that, and blah, blah, blah. I was intrigued. And I think Cthulhu is like his biggest creature feature kind of thing, and it's very popular, very famous. I didn't enjoy it that much. I don't know why. I mean, there isn't anything specific, but I wasn't blown away. I don't know. And I love horror, but I wasn't blown away. Now, The Hound, was it The Hound? Yes, The Hound. Because it was a couple of other short stories mixed in there by other authors in the book that I happened to read. And yeah, it was The Hound. Anyway, so I really enjoyed that one. That one I thought was very good, very creepy, but a short story, nice, quick, creepy vibe in between other things I was reading. So I enjoyed that. I may read more by H.P. Lovecraft sometime in the future. I'm not going to go rushing to it. I read Hercule Poirot's Christmas. He's my favorite of Agatha Christie's characters. And this one was really, really fun. Although I think in this one, he didn't show up until like almost halfway through the book. And she does that sometimes with him and Miss Marple. And I prefer the books where he's like in it all the way from the beginning. But still a very fun book. And I will never get tired of reading Agatha Christie. And then I'm going to tell you, I read a couple of manga that are very, very silly and very cheesy, and I loved them. It's called Cat Gamer. I'm not a gamer. I've played video games growing up, but we didn't have like the brand name video game consoles like everybody had. Because in my era, it was Atari. We didn't have Atari in my house. We had a gaming system called Odyssey, and it was like basically Dollar General Atari. It was just a ripoff. Instead of Pac-Man, there was something called Casey Crazy Chase. And it was the same setup, with the grid, and you gotta go through and eat all the dots. But instead of the little wicka Pac-Man, it was this little weird fuzzy ball thing, and his name was Casey, and it was Casey's Crazy Chase. And I can't remember what they had substituted for the ghosts. But anyway, it's the basic same kind of premise. All of these games that were on Atari were also on Odyssey, but by different names and cheaper graphics or whatever. It was very, very silly. Anyway, that's my gaming experience. And that was only my middle school years. And so I was never really much of a gamer. Now, this manga series, apparently there's several of them, but there's only 2 so far. The first 2 volumes translated into English. Because it's they're manga, so they're Japanese authors. And I will put the author's name up here. And I will put the pictures of the 2 manga that I read, because they're super cute, and that's why I got them. Is because it's about this girl, young woman, works in an office setting, and she's very loner, to herself kind of person. People hardly know anything about her, but when she goes home, she's very much introvert. When she goes home, though, she's online gaming, and she's got a very big personality when she's playing these games, probably because, nobody can see her. And a kitten is found at the office, near the office building. They take it into the building and trying to give it away, see if anybody wants it. And much to her own surprise, she volunteers and says, I'll take it. And the whole premise of it is she's learning how to be a cat mom. She's never had pets before. She doesn't know how to do anything. So every time she learns something new about the cats, she kind of relates it in her mind to leveling up as if she would in a game. So it's super cute. Very quick reads, very fun, and it's just, when you're feeling kind of low and you just want something simple and kind of funny and kind of quirky, I read those, and it was super, super fun. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at as far as 2022 reading. There were other things in there. I think I got caught up on the read along for the Vorkosigan saga. Let me look. The last one I read was Diplomatic Immunity. I think we've got 4 more books left. We're doing 1 a month on the Discord Mike's book reviews. And there's a group of people who have been reading one Rokosikin book every month for several months now. We've got 4 more to go. I'm just looking down at my list. Oh, and I read A Christmas Carol. I had never ever read that before, and I didn't realize it was so short because, you know, I go into used bookstores and I see all of these Dickens books and they're huge, and I'm like, I would really like to read A Christmas Carol, but I don't feel like reading another big book. And then I found it on ebook and it was super cheap, and then I realized that it's very short. So I read it in less than an hour, but it was so good. It is crazy how something that short can have such atmosphere. Really loved it, and it really made me want to go watch A Muppet Christmas Carol, which I did. Thanks, Dickens. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. So overall, in 2023, I got through 154 books. Now, I broke that down. Excuse me. It's time for a drink. Excuse me. So, I listened to 98 audiobooks. And then I read 32 physical books and 24 ebooks. So, those are my stats. 154 books. Now, with that in mind, I have challenged myself, and I got this from a booktuber, Michael K. Vaughan, and I'm pretty sure he got this from another booktuber. I think he called Criminali. I only watch a few booktubers. Michael K. Vaughan, Mike's Book Reviews, Madison Goodyear, and Joanna Reads. And I think there's another one. Ooh, what is it called? This Story Ain't Over, I think is her name. Anyway, Michael K. Vaughan is doing a challenge that he got from another booktuber who I believe he called Criminali. And the challenge was to read 100 books that you already own before you buy any new books. And then when I heard about it from Michael K. Vaughan, he was already like, I'm going to do it bigger and better, and, well, not better, but bigger and crazier. And he's going to do 500 books. 500 books before he buys anything new. And he's like, this might take me my entire life. But I thought, you know what, that's a good challenge because I'm already on a kind of a no buy for my yarn, and I really need to buckle down on that. And like I said, Toad Hollow is not dying yarn anymore. And another one of my favorites stopped dying yarn, I want to say maybe close to a year already. That was Pandy's Jewels. I don't know that I ever mentioned that, but Pandy's Jewels hasn't been dying yarn for a long time. She was my other favorite. So, as far as yarn, I'm not going to be buying any new yarn in 2023 unless, one stipulation, unless new colorways come out from Breaking Yarn. Now, McKaylee at Breaking Yarn puts out new colors. Those come for her few and far between. So I'm going to allow myself, whenever she gets a new colorway in, I'm going to allow myself a skein of that. But that's all the yarn that I'm going to buy in 2023. It sounds so scary. So I will be working a lot from Stash, which I have been, and I'm really loving shopping in my own stash and finding ways to use up these colors and mix and match and everything. And as far as my books, I'm going to do the 100 books read that I already own before I buy anything else. But I am going for me. I'm pretty sure that this is not something that Michael K. Vaughan or anybody else doing the Criminology Challenge. They're probably all doing physical books. I'm going to include ebooks and audiobooks because I'm weak and I know that I can't go a couple of years without buying a book. But, you know, for this year, like I said, I did 154 books total. So that means if I stay on that kind of same track, I won't be buying a new book until August. I think that's a long enough wait. I think that's pretty good. But I am going to count audiobooks and ebooks as well as physical books. Now that doesn't mean that I'm going to go through and pick nothing but audiobooks and listen to them all on 2.5 speed. Most of the time I listen to audiobooks kind of right around 1.5. It's very rare that I go higher than that, and sometimes I'm actually closer to normal 1.0 speed, but for the most part I'm right around 1.5, so I'm not as fast as some people. I can't believe that people will listen to it at chipmunk speed. And I was like, the end. That is too hard for me, but it is still a little bit sped up. But just putting it out there, I'm not going to be rushing through nothing but audiobooks. I've got a whole bunch of books planned. I do have a couple of read-alongs that I'm going to be joining in on Mike's Book Reviews Discord. And the first one is The Arthurian Tales by Giles Christensen. No, not Christensen. Giles Christian.
Hold up. Where'd it go? It was right in front of me a minute ago. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back. Oh, right there.
So it's the Arthurian Tales by Giles Christian. The first book, which I've already started and I'm maybe about a quarter of the way through, is Lancelot. I'm not sure. I probably have back when I was reading Mary Stewart's Merlin series. I love Merlin. I love King Arthur and all the Knights of the Round Table. Love, 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 love. So I'm excited for this. I'm already enjoying it so much. And this, as the title says, it follows Lancelot from a young boy onward. I'm assuming he's going to meet Arthur at some point. Very exciting. And just to be silly, I'm going to admit that the TV series Merlin from BBC, which you can see on any streaming service, basically, it's always around, the Merlin TV series, love, love, love. And if you had any question as to the Lancelot in my head, it's Santiago Cabrera. Yeah, that's him. And then next month, this is only a 2-book series, so it's a duology. The second book will be Camelot. So I'm assuming there's going to be a whole lot of Arthur in here. Very excited. And look at how pretty they are. Just look how pretty they are. Very happy. Now with this 100 books that I already own challenge, as far as the physical books are concerned, after I'm done reading the physical books, I'm going to have to decide whether or not I want to keep them, because things are getting out of hand. I've got books stacked in my room. I've got them stacked in the little entryway here in the living room. I've got books in my car, but don't tell anyone. So I'm going to decide whether or not I want to keep any of these books. And I already know I'm keeping these ones. It's Arthurian. I'm keeping it. I already know I'm keeping these 2 books. But down the road, I know I'm going to have to be deciding whether or not I want to keep books. I already know there's some books that I can look at right now and tell you as soon as I read them, I'm going to give them away. Probably take them to little free libraries, which is probably where I found most of them to begin with. And or donate to the used bookstore in my neighborhood, because it's all that bookstore is all donation based. So I'll have to make some decisions as things go along. Yeah, I say a lot, and I'm sorry, but it's something that's never going to stop happening because I'm awkward. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's my year in review. Well, not my year, but kind of. I don't know why I always feel so awkward at the beginning of podcasts, at the end of podcasts. But this is me, and I had a wonderful couple of months, even though there was a little bit of low emotional things. But basically it was pretty good. And I am ready to start this new year off bigger and better, and trying to let some things heal. We'll see. That, at the beginning of the year, there's always these big plans, and then I kind of fall through. But I do want to do this 100 book challenge, and I do want to do the 23 whips in 2023, and I'm loving this shawl for the Out of the Dark mail. So far I'm feeling really good. I'm not going to beat myself up for falling behind, because nobody's going to take me away in cuffs if I don't keep up. I hope that all of you are having a good new year thus far, and I wish the rest of the year to be just as wonderful. And I really appreciate you coming to hang out with me for a little while. I'm sorry that this one is a little bit extra long. I'm actually toying with the idea of breaking up the book talking and the yarn talking into 2 different videos, and maybe doing the book stuff every other week, and keeping my yarn stuff to once a month. That way neither one segment is too long. Let me know if that's something that you think I should do. I think I probably will do it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. But again, thank you for coming and spending a little bit of your time with me. I really, really appreciate you. You can find me on Instagram as the Tangled Cat. If you're on Ravelry, I am on there as well as I am the Tangled Cat. Tell me about your goals. I don't like to say resolutions, but goals, your guidelines. Tell me about your 2023 goals and guidelines for the year. I'm not going to judge you, and I'm not going to hold you in contempt if you don't stick to it, and I hope you don't hold me in contempt either. I'm human. But let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts on things, and I will see you next time. Bye.